we professional? Look at that. We have the intro, and now you're looking at Jim Gould broadcasting to you direct from the palatial studios of Seven Spot in magnificent Vancouver, British Columbia, where we're going to have a live stream to San Diego to include our good friend Martin Coghill. Martin Coghill, say hi to the Seven Spot Nation.
Hi, Seven Spot Nation. Good morning. Hi, Jim.
How are you doing? I'm also going to bring in Graham Finlayson from Barbados, but somewhere lurking in Northern Ireland right now.
Garlic. Hi.
Also bringing in directly from somewhere in the UK, Julian Turner from Westfield. Say hi.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Welcome.
And look at this. We've got John Minion from the Northwest Kit Car Owners Group somewhere in the Midlands. How are you doing today, John?
Dark and wet again.
Well, it's great to have you all with us. And I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time talking about me, but I will just comment that we're hoping to have Greg Kelly to come along with us and show us his electric conversion of a Westfield. But unfortunately, he's had a medical emergency and can't make it today. So we'll have to drag him along for another show. Sorry, you guys, you piston heads. We are going to be doing more electric stuff. So you're just going to have to get used to it. So without further ado, because I don't like to make these things about me, I'd like to take us sort of out of the picture, but I'm going to put Martin into the picture in full screen there. Martin, you've got a couple of things that you've been working on. One is you did a very lovely Locost, and is it a Miata Locost that you built? Hello.
That's
Martin.
right. Miata MX-5. It's a 1994 engine that's in it. The first.
That's great.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Seems like we got a little bit of lag.
Yeah. So, well, firstly, I hope things are okay with Greg and his family. Let me show you around the garage. So, do you see the white car?
I do indeed.
Yeah. So this is my Locost 7. It's basically a Haynes Roadster, outer dimensions. Like you mentioned, it's a MX-5 Miata, Miata as they call it here in the States. 1.8 liter from a 94. High-speed transmission, and I actually used the whole of the rear subframe from a 99 Miata. The reason for that was I was able to get a Torsen differential from the local scrapyard. I didn't realize what he had and managed to pick that up, a couple of $100. So because it's a little bit shabby, it's still sitting on the trailer. Still sitting on the trailer, come back from a track day out in the desert out here in Southern California. I still have the dirt from an off-track excursion.
Oh yeah,
which is a little bit wild. It filled not only the car with sand, but also the inside of my helmet. I'll give you a quick walk around.
I'm just going to jump in quickly, if you don't mind. Martin, you have the most unique. You have the absolutely the most unique Southern California accent. You're from San Diego, are you?
No, just a little bit east of San Diego. So I was born in Thurso, up in the far north of Scotland, and brought up on a farm up there. And spent about 10 years in Glasgow, worked for a company there that was bought out by an American firm, and that's how I ended up here.
Lovely.
But back to the car I call the RP7. There's a backstory to that. The RP stands for Recuperation Project. I'd had a bit of surgery that left me in a bit of a physical and mental low point. and so I decided to build a car, and that's what that stands for. It's fully street legal. It's passed all of the examinations for street legal in California.
Mm-hmm.
How hard is it?
Actually, pretty.
How do you get on with emissions in California? My brother's out there. He's got a Volkswagen Beetle. He swaps the engine out every year to get it through emissions, then puts a different one back in.
You shouldn't have told the world that. He'll be in trouble now. So yeah, in California, if you build what they call a specially constructed vehicle, which is a home-built car that looks like a car of a certain vintage, then you can get it registered as the year of the look of the car, as opposed to the year of the engine. So this is registered as a 1964 Lotus Super 7, and so the smog, the smog emissions requirements didn't come in until 68 or 70 or something like that. And so it's. I never knew
that. I never knew that. It's very difficult in the UK. You can't do that in the UK.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, surprisingly reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the car. It was built 11 years ago. I built the trailer a little bit more recently. We're not allowed to park things outdoors here on our driveway. That's not really a car. So I built the trailer to fit inside the garage, and the drawbar folds up. And what I can actually do is the trailer will tip forward if I want to take the car for a drive. I don't need to take the trailer out of the garage to take the car for a drive. And then when I've towed it somewhere, it'll tip backwards, and I can run the car off the back.
That's brilliant.
And then it's all pretty easy to move around the garage. I could move that with one hand, as it's so light.
That's great.
And then if that's enough with the old Locost, this is the new project. So
lovely.
This is essentially the same thing, but Tesla powered, all electric.
Mm-hmm.
Take you into, well, sitting on here, I have the photograph of my my old Westfield, which I still miss. But here at the back end, the Tesla motor will go into the back end here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the Tesla motor, but this is actually the motor part.
This is a small drive unit, Martin.
This small drive unit, it's the front one from a Tesla Model S. So this is the motor, this is the inverter, and then there's a gear reduction system, which I think is 9.34 to 1 ratio. This motor will spin up to 18,000 RPM.
Wow.
And it's rated for 220 kilonewtons, which is kilowatts rather, so which is about 300 horsepower, and 243 pound for the torque from the motor itself. So plenty to get this thing going. The battery pack is from a Chevy Volt, and basically the car is built around that battery pack. I think in the UK that would be, is it a Vox Pera perhaps?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so there's 3 modules to the battery.
Have you had
What
to
voltage
strengthen
are you
the
using?
chassis at all?
Sorry, what?
Have you had to strengthen the chassis at
What
all?
was that, John?
Have you had to strengthen the chassis for the batteries?
Well, the whole chassis is really built around the battery pack, and it's all fully, it's quite a beefy chassis. You can see what would be the old transmission tunnel. It's all spoke to the battery pack. Everything's very tightly fitted in there. But the battery pack is not too heavy. I'm looking up on my board here to see what the weight is. It gets 308 pounds for all 3 modules, so not too bad at all. And there's 90 cells in here. The total capacity of the battery pack is 18 kilowatt hours, and I think about 14 and a half that is usable. So I've gone up on, out of the 3 things, whether it's power, range, and weight, I've given up on the range so that I've got decent power and reasonably low weight. I estimate this will come in at about 1,400 pounds, which is about 640 kilos. Interestingly, there's radiators. With electric, you really need the long-rated radiator for the inverter. That gets pretty hot. And then another radiator for the battery pack and all the ancillaries, the charger and things like that. That gets warmed up to undercharge. For the rear end, this is actually I've emulated the Tesla Model 3 rear end. So the uprights are from the Tesla Model 3, and so there's a multi-link suspension here. It's obviously a lot narrower than the Tesla, but gives me an opportunity to put beefy wide tires on there. Hoping to get some traction.
Right. Can I ask a dumb question? How long have you been into this build?
This one actually started 2 years ago, but I didn't work for a good year with the whole COVID thing and trying to sort life out in general. I kind of didn't get much activity, but there's probably about a year's worth of work. So yeah, I've got the fun job doing all the wiring next. So each of the 96 cells within these modules needs at least one wire. I'm going to be pretty short-sighted by the time I finish this.
Get some rubber gloves.
Oh, I do have them.
Amazing. And just to follow
any questions on this?
I was just going to say, you've been into it for, say, build time of 1.5 years. How much longer do you think it'll take before you'll be on the road? How long before the rubber will start to hit the road?
That's a really good question. So I certainly hope that by the end of this calendar year, I'll have it. I'll have it on track. Hopefully,
I like to ask that question.
It's built autocross.
Oh yeah, I like to ask that question because
we
got so many builders on 7 Spot, and part of the reason why we're doing this is so that everybody can see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. And it's good to know that, within a reasonable period of time, you can actually get her done.
Have there been any issues communicating with the Tesla components?
The low cost.
That's right.
Go ahead, Martin.
Yeah, so with the Model S, I know that with the Model 3, there's quite a lot of difficulty because the components are kind of coded with each other. But with the Model S, I'm going with Damien McGuire's PCB replacement. He's an absolute genius, along with Johan Hubner, who did the whole open source open inverter deal. So I have that board. I haven't got the motor running yet. I'm saving that that's kind of dessert, in this meal. Saving that for a little bit towards the end once his battery pack up and running.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll be using probably a Tesla throttle, and it's just an analog signal to the motor. I have an Orion EMS for controlling the battery pack. And hopefully I'll start to learn about CAN bus and getting those things figured out, because there's lots of cool gadgets you can add and dial the motor in with touch screen control and stuff in the cockpit.
That's cool. And in terms of the skin on the exterior, is it going to be pure Locost, pure Haynes?
Yeah, I'm kind of in half a mind. I call this thing the Cyber 7, kind of a nod to Tesla. I was thinking of a little bit of a different, maybe a more modern look, but those things can go disastrously wrong because the styling of the 7 is it's fared pretty well over time.
Yep.
I just
Well,
just happen.
I only asked that because
there
I
are
was
there are a
wondering.
couple of different details compared to the old car. Things
Mhm.
that I love building this car. You can see the seats.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think we're having a bit of a lag. You were going to tell us about the seats.
So I was going to talk about the couple of things I learned from building this car that I've done differently. Yeah, so one thing I've built differently, from this car, you can see that the rear bulkhead is quite steep angle compared to the seating position, and I felt like I lost a lot of space in here. This is quite a long wheelbase car. It's actually 97 3/4 inches wheelbase, and it's very stable on track. But autocross, I want to be good at rotating. So this car actually matched the recline of the seat, so for the rear bulkhead, so I'm not losing that space. It's not wasted, and the rear bulkhead will become the back of the seats for the driver and passenger. And then the cabin area is fitted for myself. I'm 6'2", so things could get pretty tight if it's not done right. So basically, it's this chassis is built around the battery pack and myself and my preferred driving position. So that's something that's a little bit different to the Hayes.
That looks good. Looks really good. You can get your seats further back as well.
Seem to have a little bit
Hope
of a
you can't hear
satellite
me
lag.
now.
No, we hear you fine. It's just a bit of a satellite lag. So we're speaking to each other in different.
The main
different planets.
Not even any seats. The car itself might be the seat, and I'm going to figure that out.
Well, thanks very much, Martin. You're a busy man. Thank you very much for sharing that with us, guys. Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask Martin?
What charging solution? How is that going to work with the mix of Tesla and Chevy Volt equipment on there? Did it get through?
Can you hear us?
That's a great question. So I have a Tesla wall connector because my daily driver is a Model 3, and I discovered that the standard here, the J1772. Yes, the J1772, which is standard over here, is the same wiring protocol as Tesla has. So my plan is to actually use the Tesla charging port to a 6.6 kilowatt charger that I have, and then I'll be able to plug into the Tesla wall connector as if it was my daily driver.
Very cool.
Neat.
Well, thanks again, Martin. It's just absolutely stunning that you shared this your story with us. And I know there's a bit of a lag, so I'm going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to move on just a little bit, and I'm going to actually just show a bit of Greg Kelly's car. And unfortunately, he's not with us, but I'd like to show his Westfield that he's converted, and then he's offered us some slides, which I'll bring those in. Then, if it's all right with you, I'm going to move on to Julian after that. So I will say thank you for now.
Yeah, thanks, Martin.
Thanks so much, Martin. So this is Greg Kelly's Westfield that he converted. I admit I am a dunderhead when it
All right,
comes
thanks,
to,
guys.
Yeah, no, thanks. Stay with us, please. We're not done. But this is the conversion he did, and he's actually not, I'm going to pause that now and bring in his slides presentation. Greg's actually not a Westfield or an electric guy per se. He's actually a striker boy, and he decided, because he's a track champion in Ireland, but he wanted to go to the drag, so that meant that he had to do a conversion, and there's both cars that he has. And this is what it looked like when he started the conversion. Out goes the engine, and you look at what you've got. Julian, please feel free to jump in if you've got any words of wisdom, because my knowledge base on this is real low. But there's the engine that he had put in. Gosh, I wish you could have been with us, but he's got medical a situation he had to deal with.
Yeah, that chassis has actually been quite highly rated because of the amount of torque it was putting through with the internal combustion engine.
Right.
So it's actually quite an ideal chassis to put the electric powertrain through.
That's cool. Like I said, I'm clearly not the right guy to discuss electric. It just scares the heck out of me. The whole idea of getting in there with rubber gloves with all that amperage. Not me.
I struggle with changing the light bulb.
So what I think he's done is probably kept the chassis loom on the vehicle. So in essence, the loom that connects the lights, indicators, all the basic commodities, and then obviously taken out all the engine loom and replaced it with all the electronics from the electric powertrain that he's put in there. From what I can see.
Look at the beefiness of those cables. That is so scary.
Yeah. Do we know what voltage he's running at? Because that looks like
I do not. But you know what?
Right.
I know that we will. I mean, he wants to be here, and we'll have another opportunity. Because, like I said, it's a tip of the iceberg when it comes to electric vehicles. There's now forums popping up everywhere on creating these cars. So. It clearly is the path to the future, and I know that Greg will want to get in, and we'll do it again.
I was going to say, I'm guessing that the thickness of those electric cables are for the amps that it's pulling.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
that's
without
right.
a doubt. Yeah. Without a doubt. Yeah, but it's a sharp-looking vehicle. Although I must admit, it does look a little bit odd with that muffler. I just couldn't really quite figure out what's the purpose of that EV. I wonder.
Yeah, it's probably going to IVA. That's not come out of my mouth.
There you go. Well, why don't we move?
Emissions.
Yeah, that's it. VW.
Well, why don't we move on from there to something that Graham can attest to, because he did help Dan in Barbados in his 10% of participation, meaning rushing to get tea and biscuits or rum.
That's more accurate.
For Dan as he did his build. But here's I believe it's at Bushy Park. It's a drag race that Dan had done. I offered to not include a drag race that against Graham and his Westfield, and just because the results speak for themselves. So I'm going to add this to the stream, and I'm going to let.
Looks like Dan against the fast Dan again.
Look at all this smoke. Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's against one of the big Evos.
That's still there. Boiling lock.
And Bushy Park is a unprepared drag strip.
Yeah, there's no track light.
Yeah, there's no track light, and it's cleaned down very frequently. So it's always a very, very clean track as such.
Yeah, I noticed that it doesn't take much to get going sideways.
Yeah, I mean, Dan in his first year with the car won the championship. won the drag championship. The car was actually never beaten in a head-to-head race.
Wow.
Not only was it a fact that Dan had
Look at that.
tires, so he's going to stage. You'll see the top two lights and then the next two down. He's just getting in position. He is running drag slicks, so that's him staged. And then he's pretty good on reaction time. But there's no noise. As you can see, the other car's still staging.
Yeah.
It's got launch ready, and
he's off.
the other Evo is probably running around 700 to 800 horsepower.
Wow.
And that's the drag done. And what you typically find is that the electric car is so quick off the start line, because obviously it's got all its power and torque from zero.
Yeah.
Even against the four-wheel, he's pretty happy there with that win.
Yeah.
Even with the four-wheel drive, the electric car would still beat them off the line, and it would demoralize the opponents. The Evo, once it kept its boot in, would typically catch up a little more, and over a quarter, it might have been a slightly different result. But he never lost a head-to-head in that car.
Wow.
He won the championship. And
didn't seem to be much wheel spin on that either.
there definitely was. He couldn't go full power pretty much all the way down the eighth. He was struggling to go full throttle, and certainly nowhere near it for the first half. And that was running 10-inch wide wrinkle wall drag slicks. So it's, I think, just the experience he had doing so many launches in that car and getting the pressures right. He managed to hold that traction reasonably well. But one that he did have relatively basic suspension on the back. I think there's a few rose joints, but it needed positive camber, and we couldn't get that on that suspension.
Yeah.
It needed fully rose jointed rear end with a bit more flexibility, which is what we'd like to put on that forward, so that we can get a little bit of positive, so it can actually sink into to get the tire perfectly flat on launch. He's got various gauges there to do with the temperatures and the voltages across the batteries. The temperature control was one of the issues that we had with that car in the end. That car sadly now needs a new battery pack. But the battery pack that was in there ran just for all-out discharge. Well,
I did mention when I was before the show to Graham that I did contact Dan. He really wanted to be on the show, but he had a situation where he had to go to the airport to pick up his girlfriend. So he did comment that it is meant to go, and it's not meant for long distances. It's just there to win.
Pure sprint, and quarter mile, whatever.
Yeah,
correct. I mean, he ran it in autocrosses. It was very good fun in the autocross. Its range was less than 20 kilometers. You really pushed it down around.
He did mention that he needs new batteries now.
Yeah, but the battery tech has moved on. This car, when it was first made, is now in the region of, or at least first spec'd, is close to 5 years ago now.
Yeah,
and the battery tech has moved on a lot. It's funny enough, we were actually looking at a long distance battery pack along the lines of the Chevy Volt, which was mentioned in the previous build we were just looking at. But at the moment, we're still fishing around to see what we're going to put in that, because there's no point losing the amount of power it can output.
No kidding. And I've watched other. I mean, if you go to YouTube, I'm sure you'll find some of his videos. He can really get sideways in that thing. It is amazing how much torque
it was at any speed. So you could be going down the highway within the speed limit, 60, 70 miles an hour, and you just touch the throttle too much, and the whole car will break sideways and go forwards very, very quickly. There's no warning. There's no building up a boost. There's no dipping of the clutch. It just rockets off. It's also geared, that car. The plan for it is to do the quarter mile and to do some kind of one-off time attack laps. We'll probably have to look at either some form of two-stage gearbox or a change to the diff ratio.
Yeah.
It's all time and money.
Well, it's amazing. I'm always in awe of Barbados, because I used to date a gal a very long time ago, and motorsports is just crazy in Barbados.
Correct.
It is amazing.
Every weekend there's at least one event from February to November. Whether it's drag racing, circuit racing, rallying, autocross, karting, off-roading, time attack, there's always something going on. Bushy Park is the main facility, but there's another one where if you look up Dan's videos on YouTube, you'll see him doing some autocross at Vaucluse, which is it's mainly for rally sprints and rally cross, but they do other events there. And then obviously rallying is island-wide. But sadly, we can't rally Westfields there anymore. You know, we did that, but the rules have changed, and sadly, that's no longer possible. The roads are pretty bad now, though, too. They were better when we rallied them.
Well, why don't we move on now, guys, with your permission? I would like to bring in a very quick sort of a video that I put together hastily, and I apologize to you, Julian, when you sent these videos to me. I hastily converted them into a little bit of a video. I took all of your videos and some of the photographs, and I'm just going to play them for us now. And I'm hoping, if you wouldn't mind, just giving us a little bit of commentary on what we're about to see. So.
Yeah, if you want to pause there, Jim.
Yeah, I just paused it, and that I was anticipating that, because that's an amazing vehicle, and I'd like you to comment on it.
Yeah, so our journey pretty much started in 2007 with the vehicle which is called the Westfield iRacer.
Yeah.
So we did a bit of a design competition around the world, where students, colleges, universities, members of the public came up with design ideas, and we took one from I think it was the Royal College of Arts, and actually turned it into a vehicle that was launched at Geneva Motor Show in 2008, and it actually used Lycra bodywork. This one actually has got carbon fibre, but it's based on exactly the same Westfield 7 chassis.
Yeah.
It's had some modifications to it, so this is actually running at 600 volts. It's got batteries in the front where the engine would be normally, but it also has them in the floor. And like I say, this was built in 2007 and 8, and this used the Oxford Yasser motors. So Yasser motors, as some of you may know, has actually been purchased and bought out by Mercedes. So they're fitting them in obviously the mainstream OEM. We spent a lot of time testing this, and it was I think it was the world's first pure electric one-make race series, in cooperation with EV Cup, which was supposed to be sort of an entry level for Formula E. Unfortunately, all the other competitors could not deliver an electric car that could last for 20 minutes. We were the only ones that could actually continually run at full power for that length of time. And that's, as you all know, still a big challenge for the Formula E race cars. But we were obviously driving for 20 minutes non-stop, sort of speeds up to 130 miles an hour, going up and down all the time, which absolutely drains the batteries. And I can still remember people talking about it, because we were testing this car at some of the racetracks in the UK, and the only opportunity that we had to race it was actually on the loud track days. So of course you've got all the really big, V8s and everything going around, and the big Ferraris and the real classics. And then we come along, in essence, really struggling to have our own generators, because you didn't have any plugins to be able to charge it.
Yeah.
And
what would be the recharge time on that to get it going again?
It was a complete nightmare, that. So it took about 4 hours to charge it, because of the amount of power supply that they had in the pit garages at that time.
Yeah.
So for us to race properly, obviously we were bringing in large industrial generators to deliver the power.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on a little bit. I'm going to move on to.
Yes, it certainly has. Yeah. So that's like I said, that's running at 600 volts, and then This beast here, which we call the Sporty, also nicknamed Blue, is actually running a 40 kilowatt hour battery pack. It's got a 120 kilowatt motor in there, and it's got, none of them are in the floor at all. All the batteries are in the front and the rear. So the weighting of that is really, really good. It's about 53 front, 47 at the back. It drives absolutely beautifully, but also goes like a complete rocket ship when you want it to.
Well, I'm going to back that up just a bit, if I may, because I'm interested. I mean, you got the Chisel, of course, but what have we got here?
So this is just sort of showing the old and new. So we've got the Sport EV. Now, just so you all know that the Sports that we did there, the blue one, is the first vehicle that we actually designed everything ourselves. So that's all the vehicle control system, everything, in the whole ECU. It's the first time it's ever been done in the company, because that was developed obviously for our autonomous pod. So it's got no driver inside, and that's used at airports throughout the world, but also for moving goods, groceries, moving drugs around hospitals, as well as people, and sweeping. Cool. So that's where some of the technology came from. Was it was actually low speed electric, pure electric vehicle, and then that came into the Westfield Sport, and then obviously the Chisel, which is a company that we bought about 2 years ago now, and we've obviously since electrified that. So we now still sell them all in internal combustion engine, but also sell them as pure electric. Yeah. And what we wanted to do, certainly in the cars, is have one common platform across the entire range. And as you can see here, this is the Westfield Sport. You've then got the electric Chisel, and then you've got the electric 11 that we do as well.
I just can't get over the sound or the lack of sound of them. I can remember the first time I was walking down the street and one of them pulled up behind me, and I was shocked, just literally shocked, because it just snuck up.
Yeah, so you've got to remember that we, in 2008, after we'd worked with Oxford Yasser, we then actually moved over to Evo Motors. So we actually kept the diff in through it and put the power through. And we did a lot of trials for the government, so that they could actually see and understand what it was like for members of the public. And obviously, you can imagine that when we're testing and trialing this with members of the, on the actual roads themselves, there were lots of problems of people just stepping out in front of it, cyclists having issues, all sorts of things, because the cars are so quiet. And when you're driving along, you can actually hear people speaking as you're driving along. It's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, that wonderful sound of the blast that we're all addicted to. It takes a little bit of a mental adjustment, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I mean, you've got to remember, I was a big fan of the Honda S2000 engine car that we did, and I still love it to this day. But the torque this thing delivers is phenomenal throughout the entire power range. And the beautiful thing is, we can alter now all the regen in the vehicle, so you can do one pedal driving. And it's been, a real journey for us, obviously, ever since we got involved in it. But I think we're probably one of the only companies that's worked with 4 different motor manufacturers and also a number of different battery manufacturers to get the best possible performance while keeping it extremely lightweight in the vehicle. So this vehicle only weighs 90 kilograms heavier than the normal ICE engine vehicle, internal combustion engine.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
It is amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's been a heck of a challenge, but it's been really good, and
it's worked
exceedingly well.
You've been busy.
What sort of range are you getting out of it on typical driving?
So typical, I'd probably say about 150 miles. If you drive it economically, you can get towards 200. If you drive it, totally mad, you can probably get about 120.
Yeah.
So I always get 120. The problem that you have is when you get in a car like that, you just want to drive it fast to the speed limit, obviously. But it's so addictive because it's so nice to get the fresh air coming in your face. There's hardly any noise at all. It's a totally different experience, but it's also fantastic.
When you think about it, you do get the wonderful sound of pure engineering. You get to hear all those lovely gears turning, and it almost sounds like a turbine. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's the best way to describe it. Actually, it's exactly like a turbine. And obviously, I've come from aviation, so I'm quite happy to have that noise in my ears. But it's something that we really missed when we first did this project in 2007. Was that noise? And I think the noise that it now makes is actually quite interesting. And we have been playing around with different noises so that you can put, a V8 on there or something like that. But we just moved away from that. Just because we thought, it's a nice thing to have as a bit of a gimmick. But actually,
it's a purest sound. You want to hear the purity of the sound. I suppose if you had to do a reversing alert so that people don't get flattened out coming backwards, that's a safety concern. But I like the fact that you can just listen to that thing whir.
You have like a sound generator on it then that you can.
Yes, we did. Yeah, so we had a sound generator on there. Well, first of all, as part of the government trials, was to see. Obviously, there were some major concerns that we fed back because obviously people were just sort of stepping out in front of it, and that's where that noise generator legislation came in. So we then started trialing different noises to see what people thought before they then obviously had to have an E-marked one on the vehicle. But yeah, it was quite interesting to see the different reactions of people when you've got this really quiet car with a V8 roar coming from inside the vehicle.
Here's a reaction.
Yeah. So you can't help but smile when you use it. And
Now I'm going to actually jump in with some of the user comments. I mean, I'm kind of on screen, but I'm also running the studio. So we have had some people ask some questions. One viewer asked, he says, "What will the weight distribution be when it is finished?" And I think that is directed at Martin. So Martin, if you can hear us. Have you figured out what on your vehicle what the weight distribution will be front to rear? We're having a little bit of a lag while Martin listens in.
Yeah, give it a second.
Yeah, we'll just patiently wait. Well, you know what? He's having a little bit of an audio situation there. Julian, on yours, what is the weight distribution front to rear on? Well, I guess we have to talk about the different platforms. Are they the same? Yeah. Is it the same platform throughout?
Yeah, so I have the ability to balance that a little bit.
Go ahead.
The large module in the center.
Go ahead.
You want me to jump in, Jim?
Yeah, I think we're good, Martin. As much as I'd love to I'm going to move ahead just a little bit. But Julian, on yours, what is the weight distribution?
We've got different weight distributions for different vehicles. So that iRacer that you saw had most of the weight at the front.
Yeah.
So obviously that was to try and simulate the existing sort of 70-30 weight distribution that exists in the internal combustion engine vehicles.
Sure.
On the vehicle that you see in the background, the latest one, that's about 53-47. So 53 at the front, 47 at the back. So that is a very different vehicle to what everyone's quite normally used to driving. But that's obviously designed for touring and things as well.
Sure.
And then when we did the drift, you probably saw one of our drift Westfields that's electric as well.
Yeah.
We put tons of weight at the front and didn't bother with any weight at the back, so just so that the back end can skip around.
Right.
But so we.
How about on the 11? I'm curious about the 11 because it's so sexy looking. But
yeah, so that's got the same battery, same motors in it as the Sport. So it's a fabulous car. As you know, as a kit and a car that uses the A series midget engine.
Yeah.
Obviously, as a pure electric vehicle, it's an absolute beauty.
Yeah.
Everywhere we drive that, people are absolutely gobsmacked by it. So but we've had to really, really dial back that motor because it's not designed to be going 0 to 60 in less than 3 seconds. So it's a more gentleman's car, and it's there to look good, and it really is fabulous as an electric vehicle as well.
Okay, and here's another question, but one Facebook user asked, what considerations and standards must be adhered to when wiring this up? I guess if somebody is thinking of this, I would suggest joining a forum and reading a lot of electrical engineering handbooks.
Yeah, we're offering a kit build of this, just so you know, Jim. But what we have to do is we have to have the vehicle back to set it up and to certify it. But obviously, the batteries have to comply with the regulations, certainly in the United Kingdom and in Europe with R100, which means that the batteries have to have impact testing and safety with a safety disconnect and also thoroughly tested. So we can't just build a pack and then put it out there. We, you know, as a manufacturer, we have to do the testing, and that's just something that, you know, if you are building this at home, you are obviously allowed to do it, but that's more and more that question is being asked about the R100 testing.
Makes total sense to me.
It makes total sense, though, doesn't it? You don't want people just throwing in batteries and hoping for the best.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And if you can use, you know, like you say, the Tesla packs, or even the Nissan, you know, we've done a Nissan Leaf conversion. We've done our own Tesla conversion as well, to see what that was like. So, you know, if you are using mainstream packs, you are able to carry over some of that type approval. Just for the, you know, for the kit builders, but you have to be exceedingly careful because obviously, you know, certainly the toolkit has to be upgraded to be an electrical toolkit that you use. Because all it takes is for you know, crossing a spanner over, and then you've got molten metal going around.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've all done that. I'll attest to that. I'm bad. I've arced my battery, not paying attention. But a dumb question, but it ties into this. What additional strengthening needs to be done to build into the rear of the chassis to hold the drive unit?
Do you want me to take that? Because obviously, we've
if you wouldn't mind,
similar to what Martin's done as well. So for the Tesla unit installation at the back, we had to really modify the rear end because obviously the amount of torque that kicks out.
Yes.
So yeah, there's quite a few modifications to that. But also, if you are thinking of converting this from an existing chassis, I would look at modifying the rear. You know, just to take that amount of torque.
It's going to need to be pretty beefy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. We provided actually the testing that we did in our electric drift car. We actually took that across all the learning that we took from that is actually now in all of our chassis. So that's been really, really important bit of development. But you do need to modify the chassis if you've got an existing one. So it's does take its toll. Now you know the rule that I have is every race mile you do is equivalent to sort of 100 miles on the road. And then every drift mile is obviously, you know, even worse than that because you accelerate fatigue so much. So.
I assume you have to. I assume you have to upgrade the drive shafts in some way.
Yeah, we had bespoke drive shafts made to be able to utilise that. And a lot of that will depend on, you know, how much torque you do want. So on the iRacer, we had direct drive from the motors. So we had two motors at the rear, the drive shaft going directly into the rear wheels. And then obviously with the Evo motor, we kept the existing drive shafts in place. And then on this vehicle, we've obviously made some new bespoke drive shafts as well. So that's something else that you need to consider to upgrade, as well as the meters of cabling and convoluted tubing that you need to put around it.
Amazing. Well, Julian, I am going to say to you in particular, I'm going to say thank you. This is it's great opportunity for us to have a chat with you personally and to get to know you a little bit. But if we have the opportunity in another electric build, if it's all right, I'd love to reach out to you and see if you'd like to participate, because I know that you're humble. You actually wrote me today and said, "I don't want to make this all a big Westfield advertisement," to which I responded, "Give us more." You know, you can advertise on 7 Spot as much as you want, and we would love to find out more about these vehicles. It's the way of the future.
Yes, no, it certainly is. You know, it's a pleasure to, you know, be able to have the opportunity to, you know, come and meet everybody and talk about it. You know, we've been really excited about the technology. It is a very different experience. There's a lot of people. It's a bit like Marmite. Some people love it, some people hate it. But actually, you know, I think once you've been in the car and driven one of these, and I think there's no turning back. we've had, I think we've had about 6 or 7 professional drivers racing the vehicle
Yeah.
at various times. All of them, they're the best people because they always swore and said, we'll never, ever go to this electric technology. And every single one of them now drives an electric car
Yeah.
and said it's the best car that they've ever driven. So it speaks for itself.
And Graham, I want to say thank you to you as well for joining in. I mean, on very short notice, you said you'd come in and do this, and it's always great to get your input, particularly because you did you were the coffee and Coke and rum runner for Dan, and who knows, maybe one day when Dan is less busy and we have the opportunity to do another one, I'd love to have you involved.
Yeah,
and
no
by
problem.
the way,
I mean, I totally agree with what Julian was just saying there. I mean, from a driver's perspective, once you've driven an electric car, even on the road, or whether it's in competition, you realize the potential they have. You realize the throttle response, the reliability, and the ease of working on them.
Yeah.
That all you miss is the noise. But as a competitor, the noise is really for the crowd.
Yeah.
If you want to win these days, the future is competition-wise electric. We're just waiting for the battery tech to catch up.
Yeah.
But once it does, there's no stopping it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And John, I wanted to say thank you for you just dropped in at the drop of a hat. I thank you very much. And a dumb question for you. In amongst the Northwest Kit Car Owners Group, are you aware of anybody who's doing any electric builds at this particular point?
Not at the moment. I mean, I built an electric car for my boys, a little Toylander.
Uh-huh.
That's about as far as I've got. It was it was running 12 volts, but I upgraded to 24 volts, batteries in series, twin motors driving the rear wheels.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant.
And we're going to add Martin back in here as the spinning wheel of death is lapsed. Martin, I just wanted to say, and I know there's a lag in terms of audio, but thank you so much for sharing your story and your cars with us today, because it's great to not only have an internal combustion live stream, but really you're making history on 7 Spot. This is you've broken the ground for electric vehicles. Thank you so very much. All right, we'll leave it at that, guys. We've been on for almost an hour, but I'll say thank you again. It's been fabulous. Thank you all. And, as I always say, we will see you at 7 Spot.
And Jim, congratulations on getting your hair cut. Or have you
Thanks,
just tied
Jim.
it back?
Are you kidding me? Bye, guys. Thanks again.
Thanks,
And
guys.
we'll chat
Thanks a lot.
soon. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
All
Look
right.
after
Bye
yourselves.
now.
Cheers, bye.
Bye. Have a great day.